All right. Well, the FDA approved a shot for RSV, that's respiratory syncytial virus, for infants now born during RSV season and babies up to 24 months who remain vulnerable to RSV. This is not a vaccine, but it's a shot. They do give you an injection. They give babies. This is approved for babies. Here's the FDA announcement today saying they're super excited about it. Now they link to the news about it plus the clinical trials. So I took it upon myself to read those. Was it tested? Is it safe? Well, I don't think these are awesome results. I'm going to take you through it. You decide for yourself if these are awesome results. I think some of them are shocking and, you know, these are so-called clinical trials. You decide. It's so interesting that the mainstream media today was just promoting this like a commercial.
That was my thought. Oh, here's their Twitter account. It's like they're promoting a new movie that's coming out. They're like, we're at the FDA. We're proud to announce a new drug from a biopharmaceutical company that we make money off of.
As if they might make money.
Yeah, imagine that.
From pharmaceutical companies. They are totally incurious about the clinical trials, but I wasn't. So I'm on this one, you guys. I'm going to show you these, and I want to let you decide for yourself, but I want to let you know that I am a mom who had a baby that did have RSV. I brought a picture of my little Ava Bean. She is now 11. But in this picture, she was 7 months old and she did have RSV. And it is serious. You can see how they had to monitor her oxygen levels with that little thing on her toe because she was so tiny. It's dangerous for babies because it inflates their little air passages that are already too small, like a little coffee straw. So it can severely restrict oxygen levels, and that is very dangerous. So had I known that I would have a baby with RSV, would I have given her this? Well, let's look. The shot is called Beyfortus. It's made by AstraZeneca and Sanofi. It was given FastTrack designation for this approval, meaning it was expedited and accelerated and never had to finish clinical trials. It had 3, but they didn't have to keep going because they decided to just FastTrack it. Why? Well, they're saying RSV is an emerging and serious need, and babies were filling hospitals with RSV last year. We're going to look at the fatality rate in a second so you can do your calculations. Now, again, the mainstream media is all in on celebrating this injection with headlines like this. Provides lasting in protection now, long-acting drug to protect babies and toddlers against RSV. I don't know how they can say that because the study did not prove long-acting. I'm going to show you in a second. Again, it's a therapeutic, and they're saying this is a great win for babies. What they're saying is that it reduces the risk of RSV by about 70%. Now, what they mean is that of the groups that they gave it to, placebo versus this shot, 70% fewer of the babies in the shot group were contracted RSV than those in the placebo group. They don't actually know how many of those babies were exposed. It's not like all of them, some of them got the shot and they all exposed them to RSV. You can't do that in a clinical trial. That would be unethical. And we don't know how much were these little babies out in the world. Like, did some of them go to daycare? Some of them are preemies, and preemies are typically kept inside more often. How much we don't know. We only know that fewer of the babies, fewer percentage, not fewer babies in the vaccinated group were actually diagnosed with RSV. It says nothing about whether or not it was serious and whether or not it made their RSV less. They only measure contraction. Okay, so if 70% of the groups in the vaccinated or shot given group were not diagnosed with RSV, if you were 70% less likely, you still are 30% to get it. And if you get it, there's no guarantee that this lessens your exposure to it. Now, let's look at these. They said they did 3 clinical trials. They linked to them. So let's look at them. The first one they did on premature babies, preemies, born between 29 and 35 weeks. And this was done in 2016. And look, this is what they're saying is the incidence rate is that the placebo group was about 484 and 46 of them, or 9.5% of them, got RSV versus 25 in the group given this medication out of 965. So they're saying that makes it 70% less of the babies in the placebo group, or 70% less, sorry, in the group that got it. Now, worrying though is...
Someone in our chat, Wolf Lone, says, hell no.
Okay.
Hell no.
Okay. Now, worrying is this number, what they call TEAE or TESAE. That means that there's a condition that the baby had as a baseline that worsened after they got this shot. So maybe you're thinking, well, my child already has some kind of lung condition, so I really don't want to give them RSV or have them contract it. So then I would try to give them these antibodies. Well, look at this number. The TAEs, or this baseline thing that the kids had, got worse in both cases, the placebo and the group that got the study. So they're about 86% likely to have this worsening of a condition with or without the shot. But there's more in the TESAE, which is the group that, again, it became so serious that it was treatment emergent, that they think it could have been linked to the vaccine. So these are kids that were already sick and got worse. More of them got worse in the group that got the shot. So this is, again, how would you feel if you have a baby who may already be sick and you say, well, this could lower their chance of getting RSV, but it also gives you an 86% likelihood that whatever they have gets worse. I don't think I would take that bet.
Yeah, would you take that trade-off?
And now look at the adverse events. This is total adverse events. So 16% adverse events in the placebo group. That's a weird number, right? But why is something happening there otherwise with these babies versus 11%? But then if you look at the actual incidence, go all the way down to the bottom where it says death. Well, there's one death in the vaccinated group or the shot given group versus 0 in the placebo group. And then if you look up at cardiac arrest, cardiac failure, those have at least one baby in those places for the shot given group versus the placebo group. So again, at least one baby died compared to no babies in the placebo group, and 3 of them had heart attacks or heart failures. Would these babies have otherwise died of RSV? We don't know. So this is a calculation that you're going to have to make as a parent if you have all the data. No, they're not going to give you all the data. At least the news wouldn't. Now, about those 2 other clinical trials. The second one was done on babies born after 35 weeks of pregnancy. And here's what they say about this number, is that 5% of infants who had this drug contracted RSV versus 5% without it versus 1.2% who contracted it with it. Then they say that means a 75% effectivity rate. But I cannot compare this to adverse events, because when you go to this clinical trial and ask to look at the results, this is what you get.
No results posted.
So I can't tell you if babies died or had heart attacks. I literally cannot, because it's not there. Third study, same thing. This one they gave to preterm infants or infants with chronic lung disease or congenital heart disease all the way up to 24 months. Again, we can't compare the adverse events, because same thing on this. Take a look at this clinical trial. No results posted. So the FDA feels comfortable giving us these 70 to 80% effectivity rates with only one data set published from clinical trials, 2 others posted but results not given.
People in the chat, Jim Danielson says, thank you, Natalie, for reading all of this trial info. Yes. And then others are wondering, because I had the same question as I was going through this today too, is what was the placebo? What are they giving them, like a sugar pill, like a saline pill? Like, what exactly was the placebo?
I don't know. And you have to think tiny, tiny babies that are getting an injection.
Well, someone says here, Squirrely says, surely there can't be a placebo effect in a baby.
That's a really good point that I had not thought about.
What is the placebo effect in a preemie?
Well, how can you have a death in a placebo test?
They did not have a death in the placebo
But they had
test.
adverse events.
I think you said 16.
There was that huge adverse events. Right?
No, that was adverse events. That was totality, including things like a fever or this, I don't know what this is, inguinal hernia. or diarrhea, which like, who knows, right?
So just in total?
In total, 16%, but the death was in the drug given group.
But then they won't post the actual, were there any more deaths because that data has been withheld? Or
well, again, this is one of 3 clinical trials, and 2 of them have no results available.
And how long until we see that they want to hide this data for 75 years?
Yeah, right. Now, I want to address the question of, how likely is your child really to die of RSV, or how dangerous is RSV? Because, is this risk worth it? Because if you were to say like, okay, if the child gets RSV and they're a tiny baby, again, this is something I have gone through myself. What's the survivability rate? If it were like survivability rate is like 20%, then I might take a chance on a vaccine like this with these numbers, right? But as far as we know, the most recent study about the severity of RSV and death rate for children under 5 found that only 2 otherwise healthy children died of RSV out of 42 studies. So this paper examines 42 studies. That means each study had hundreds of kids, and found only 2 who were otherwise healthy had died of RSV, because a lot of times otherwise healthy children do pretty okay with RSV. They just do have to be hospitalized if they're small, because inflamed airways means that their oxygen levels are low and they need to go on oxygen, like my daughter did for a few days. It wasn't even something they could treat with an antibiotic. They just helped her breathe until she got better on her own. Now, 2 babies out of 42 studies is 2 babies too many, but clearly that's a very, very low death rate of RSV. Considering that babies who will take this shot still can get RSV and have a high rate of adverse events and worsening conditions, does that seem like a good trade-off to you? With a very, very low death rate and a high incidence of whatever they've got getting worse? Let me know if I'm reading this wrong. Now, CBS...
Well, can I...
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just want to say really quick how unfortunate it is that we can't get real data from these companies, because now what it does is if they do have something that actually works, we're not going to know if they're manipulating it, because the pharmaceutical industries usually pay for these studies. And so we found that they're able to easily hide things. So it's like any of this data, because of the stuff that we've learned, how do we know it's ever going to be correct? And then if they do have something that's great, how do we know that it actually is? Like, it's very unfortunate that we have to sift through this and try to make sense of it, because they won't.
Right. And consider that the FDA often allows them to remove people that are inconvenient from their clinical trials. So we know that even this not awesome data is what I don't mean to, I really don't want to lead you on this, but I'm not enthused by these clinical trials, are probably not even the full story.
Kevin Robb says in the chat, sorry, there's a bug flying through here. Kevin Robb in the chat wants to know if the 2 that died, did they get the drug or not?
No, because I'm pretty sure they didn't. The study that I showed you was only on the severity of RSV before there was this treatment. So the 2 that died did not. And Bad Daddy in the chat asks, why would a parent enroll their kid for a clinical trial when they're like a preemie? I think it's probably because these children are already immunocompromised with some kind of heart failure or something like this. And you think, well, God, I don't want them to get that as well.
So then they go to these like parents that are, vulnerable, right?
Right. And they say, well, I really can't, have them have this. So let's do what we can and roll the dice. I mean, I think people who have serious...
what you're saying, then when they do that, you finally get a little ounce of hope. And then if you have adverse reactions, they remove you from it and just drop you and don't even help you, and you don't get assistance or anything.
Right. So if you're like immunocompromised, right, you're immunocompromised, you're part of this control group. And so you're getting this placebo effect, right? That's where you're getting these.
Small babies who cannot even say what their adverse, like one of them said stomach ache. And I was like, how do you know a child under 6 months has stomach ache? You know, they can't really tell you that specifically. So I'm curious about that. Now, CBS did a report on this, and Dr. Celine Gounder, we've talked about her before. She's the wife of the guy who dropped dead at the World Cup. Remember her? But she still has been very pro-COVID vaccine. Now, she did a piece on this. She says that this is useful if the mom does not get the RSV vaccine. So what the heck is she talking about? Because there is no approved vaccine for RSV for pregnant women, because Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline both are doing clinical trials of an RSV vaccine for pregnant women, and they showed between 5 and 7% risk of preterm births and neonatal deaths. So that's pretty high, I want to say. I wouldn't take something, you know, when I was pregnant that had a 5 to 7% risk of neonatal death for RSV, which I'm pretty sure I could get over. That Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline vaccine has not been approved because they had to stop some of those trials because of this. But she's still saying that will come along, but until it does, we can vaccinate the babies since the moms are not being vaccinated. She does not, in this piece, address the side effects or adverse reactions or death. Of course she doesn't.
But if a born baby has them, then a pregnant woman, it have the same effect, would it not? Because the baby's still getting it regardless if it's in or out of the womb.
Yes, she's saying that the idea of the Pfizer vaccine is that if you give it to the mom, then the baby will be protected. But since we don't have that, we have this now new AstraZeneca drug we can give. It's not a vaccine that we can give the babies because we can't vaccinate those moms yet because they keep dying in our clinical trials. So until they stop, then then that will be the way we'll go, is giving the pregnant mommies. Now, finally, the FDA, in their announcement of this, does give us this warning that Beyfortus should not be given to infants and children with a history of serious hypersensitivity to Beyfortus active ingredients. These are infants. How do you know that they have a reaction to these active ingredients? Presumably, they have not been allergy tested. They're small babies. You don't know that yet. Also, these warnings about hypersensitivity, anaphylaxis, which I don't know if I'm saying anaphylaxis, yes, which been observed with other of these monoclonal antibodies, and should be given to caution to infants and children with clinically significant bleeding disorders. Again, these are small humans who are new here. You probably don't know if they have, reactions to these things. So that's not a very helpful warning. Go ahead, Philip.
I was just going to, along with what you're saying, like, these are brand new people. They don't have a history yet. Like,
right.
It's like they're beginning to write that part of their life.
Yeah, so that's the dumbest effing warning I've ever seen in my life. Like, this is for preemies, but you should know their medical history. Yeah,
it's a long track record. Served in Vietnam. Bucker Bill here in the chat says, so you're saying that there were just 3 babies in these clinical trials that were fast-tracked? 3 babies that were fast-tracked?
What? No.
Bucker Bill says
I'm saying there were just... What? No.
Okay,
Don't make me repeat. There were 3 clinical trials, one of which we have data for, and it was fast-tracked. No, there were a lot more babies in these clinical trials. The question underneath was the children used for these trials in the USA or other countries. A lot of them were abroad.
So, Brian Keith specifically asked, were the children used for these trials in the USA, or were the children in other countries like Africa or continents like Africa?
Yes.
They use, of course, Bill Gates loves African children for that purpose. So, of course, I
can tell you that pretty.
Wouldn't be surprised. Well, finish up. You don't have to be derailed by that. But
that's pretty much it. The idea that, like, there's no medical history of allergies for small babies for the most part. That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I don't understand why the mainstream media is, like, super excited about this. you know.
Well, I know. I mean,
not asking questions.
Are you really asking that question?
Go.
Are you really asking that question? I mean, we know that all of these channels, we know that all of these networks are brought to you by Pfizer. Our next segment is brought to you by AstraZeneca. Of course. So they're going to do these segments and promote the hell out of this shit. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
No, we even covered, like, we played a clip of two ladies that were launching the other vax to kids, and they were laughing and like celebrating it on air. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were selling like, yeah, there was the one CNN anchor. She was super excited about it, right? I mean, she's like,
"Oh yeah, am I smiling?"
She's like, "Am I smiling? I'm so excited! I'm so excited! My babies get to get this stuff injected into their bodies, their tiny bodies that we're going to give this stuff to."
Okay, here it is. These trials were done in Estonia, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Latvia, New Zealand. It doesn't seem like they are concentrated in Africa.
Well, that's a first. That's an improvement. All future vaccines will be tested
Korea,
in Ukraine,
Panama, New Zealand, Spain, South Africa.
Well, and we haven't got the other two tests. Like, you know, that
no, these are. I at least have that much from the other two tests. Japan, Italy, Hungary. No, actually, not concentrated in Africa, all over the world. So.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey, we should mention to all of you that we have a store. We haven't talked about this in a while, and I wanted to talk to our team because I'd love to get some of our new designs up and running here. I know we were working on some new designs. I was looking for my silence equals complicity shirt today. I was going to wear it and I couldn't find it and I was pissed, and it was a limited run t-shirt from our redactedstore.com. If you'd like to support independent journalism, you can do that by just going over there. We really try to keep these items at cost, very, very close to cost. So very, very close to that. Just you can help support us a little bit there, but we don't jack up the prices on these at all, what it costs to produce here. So if you'd like to get a redacted hat, a mug, tumbler, the sweatshirts are very, very comfortable. That's my dog walking hat right there. That's my favorite gray dog walking hat that I wear every day. You can pick up some of that merch right there at redactedstore.com. I saw a gentleman the other day. I was walking the dog and he said, "Clayton, Redacted?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Love the show, love the show."
You got to go around in uniform more often.
Yeah. Actually, you know, the reason I brought that up is because I wasn't wearing my redacted hat that day. And I should have been.
Yeah.
Then I would have been like, "Oh, it was the hat." You know, he doesn't recognize my giant ears. But no, anyway, go to redactedstore.com and check it out. Redactedstore.com if you'd like to support what we do here. So thank you guys so much. I would love, maybe we could get some redacted coffee or something, or redacted...
like the coffee beans.
Hey, I've been working on that for like months.
I know. So. We were really testing a whole bunch of different beans and to making, like, we really wanted them to be excellent.
It's been nuts.
Yeah, yeah. Do we have a pepper spray grenades? Penguin Shoes in the chat says, does Redacted have pepper spray grenades? No, we don't have pepper spray grenades just yet. It is something we're working on at the Redacted store.
Yeah, we don't even have salt and pepper.
I'm still holding out for the. Yeah, I'm still holding out for the Redacted whiskey.
Okay.
You guys come up with your own
Redacted
whiskey brand.
That'd be nice.
All right.
Game for that.
I mean, I could do some honey, but probably not enough to sell on the internet.
Redacted
because I have bees.
I was just in Scotland when I took the kids to this camp, and I was there for people were like, "Where were you, Clayton? Were you at the Tour de France?" Do I look like a guy who races in the Tour de France?
Or wants to stand around and watch it?
No, I would have been the spectator who inadvertently caused the massive accident by like wandering across the street, not knowing there was a race
with
going
their
on.
coffee.
Like, hey, I've got my giant coffee, my redacted coffee. Oops, I just tripped 30 bicyclists. What's going on here? It's the Tour de France, you idiot. Oh, but we did a little whiskey distillery tour. Not the kids. The kids were at camp. I went with a bunch of friends, and it was really nice. But it takes a long time. So for us to have a redacted whiskey brand, it would take like 18 years.
Okay, so hold for that.
Yeah, we're gonna get started, and in 20 years we'll have our first vintage.
Well, my honey's ready now, but I'm not going to sell it.
Well, that means we got to wrap the show up then, if you know what I mean.
That's not a
Oh, okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on Redacted. We really appreciate you subscribing and being a part of this great community here, seeking the truth, because we don't have all the answers, but we're seeking the truth together. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so be sure to subscribe. Turn on that little bell notification dingus so that you'll be notified when we go live on Rumble, on YouTube, on Twitter. And have a great night, everyone. I got to go check my honey. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.